live. Beautiful. So I'm here today with Eryk and Yasmin Anders. Thank you both for being here.
Man, appreciate you having us, man.
We're in the little outskirts of Anaheim, a small studio, but we made it. So first I want to kind of get into it. Unexpected guest, Yasmin, but I'm very happy that you're here. And so I kind of want to start, Eryk, with childhood, kind of go chronologically. I read that you were born on a Air Force base in the Philippines.
Yeah, so my mom was in the Air Force. So, my oldest brother was born in Travis Air Force Base in California. There's 4 of us. My next oldest brother was born in Madrid and Spain. And then me and my little brother were both born in the Philippines. From the Philippines, we moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're there for about 5 years. So I was like 2 when we moved. Like people always ask me, it's like, oh, so are you Filipino? Can you speak Tagalog? Or they'll say Filipino, not knowing like Tagalog is the native language, what you call the language there. And I tried to get a job with the government, and they didn't give me my security clearance because I was born in the Philippines.
Oh.
And so I had to go in there, and they were like, I had to speak to an investigator, and they were like, do you own any land? Do you know any foreign national? I'm just like, lady, I was 2 years old. I apologize for my mother serving this country, but no, I don't even speak the language. I don't own any land. I don't know anybody in the Philippines. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then they gave me my security clearance. And we lived in New Mexico for about 5 years, and we moved to Japan, which was real cool. And we're there for about 3 years. Moved to Prattville, Alabama, where my mom attended the Air War College in Montgomery. Moved to Maryland, and then I went to high school in San Antonio, Texas.
And then how long did your mom serve?
She was in 26 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. So she retired as a full bird colonel, which, pat on the back to Mama Dukes, man. Not a lot of people stay in that long or achieve that.
And then, so you're in San Antonio for high school.
Yep.
And so kind of, for people that are not familiar with Eryk, football player, UFC fighter now, how did you first kind of get into football?
Man, my oldest brother, he was like my hero growing up. He's about 5 years older than me, and everything that he did, I wanted to do. And, man, he started playing football, and my parents were a little reluctant at first just because, they didn't want their kids getting hurt or whatever. And finally they talked him into it, so he started playing. And so I was like, he's playing, I want to play too. So then it kind of trickled down effect. The next brother started playing. Then I started when I was about 7 years old playing football. And it was one of those things, like a lot of people with me, they think I'm like a natural athlete. But to me, a natural athlete is someone who can play any sport with little practice and can just pick it up and do it. I'm not that way. Like I could probably play any sport, but I'm going to have to practice really hard and try really hard to be good. So football, I just, I liked it. So I played a lot of sports growing up, but football was just like, I liked the physicality of it, So I just wanted to do it, liked it. My older brother played, so, I wanted to do it.
Did you want to make a career out of it, or you just kind of wanted to play in the beginning?
When I was 7, I just wanted to play. I was like, oh, I can hit somebody and not get in trouble. Fucking sign me up, dude. That sounds like fun. And then, the more success you have with things, I think the more you want to do it. If that makes sense. Like, oh, man, I'm pretty good, and I like it, and I like training. There was no training back then. It was just you play the season and you fucking go play another sport. Now it's like, kids play the same sport year-round. Now they have like 7-on-7 leagues and stuff like that for the spring and summertime, which we didn't have. So, it was cool. I'd play football for 3 months, then, go wrestle or, play soccer or, do something every season. But I got really good really quick, and I was always a bigger dude. So, football is one of those sports where it doesn't hurt to be big or to be strong or have size or whatever. So, I was just able to do it, and, I had the stature for it as well.
And at what point did you realize, at what point did you start getting recruited, and what kind of, like, in high school did you realize, like, oh shit, like I might play at a legitimate top tier program?
Man, you know, my recruiting story is a little bit different from most of the guys who, you know, play college ball. And I wasn't really recruited because I was, you know, 6'1", 6'2", about, you know, 195, 200 pounds playing defensive line, defensive end, and, you know, 3 technique in Texas 5A football. You know, that's, you know, about as big as football gets, especially in Texas. And, man, there aren't a whole lot of guys that are lining up in Division I football that are 6'2", 200 pounds, you know. So, you know, I played, and, man, ever since I was probably, like, in middle school, I was like, man, I want to play in the NFL. I thought I was going to play for 15 years and be a Hall of Famer, all this other good stuff. But I wasn't getting recruited a whole lot in high school just because of my size, and you know, there weren't a whole lot of athletes coming out of my high school, and I think it's a lot easier when there's, you know, several guys that go before you. It's like, okay, this is a hot spot. Like, there's a high school in Tallahassee, Florida called Gobby, which a guy that I played football with in college. Man, they had 13 people go Division I off his team his senior year. That's a shitload.
Yeah.
You know, there was like 3 that went Division I out of my school. And one was to Baylor, the other was to Rice. So it's not like a whole lot, you know. It's not like super big. You know, these guys are going to like Florida, Miami, Florida State, Alabama, you know, big Division I schools. So, you know, I think the first school to offer me was Memphis. So I was like, cool. You know, I got an offer, fucking Conference USA, but whatever, man. I'll go ball out, do my thing. Then Texas Tech. Which, you know, Big 12's bigger than Conference USA. But they don't play any defense in the Big 12. So I was like, man, but I'm going to go because it's, you know, it's whatever. Then Ole Miss came. So I was like, hell yeah, SEC. Wasn't a fan of, you know, Mississippi, and, you know, their mascot was a plantation owner, and they screamed "The South shall rise again" in the end of their fight song, which, you know, being a black guy in the South, that's not really what you want to hear. But whatever, I just wanted to take advantage of my opportunity. And then Alabama came, and I was like, Alabama's not much better than Mississippi, but, you know, I kind of feel racist when I say the word Mississippi, so I was like, let's go with Alabama. And, man, it's kind of funny because after the football season ended my senior year, I had 0 offers. So I sat down, I made my own highlight tape out of the film that season, and I sent my highlight tape to every single FBS school, all 125. Looked up the address, sent it, made 125 copies as a VHS, and I'm not even sure if they were watching VHS at that point, but that's all I had. So I made 125 copies of this tape, sent them to every single school, didn't hear a word back except from those other schools. And the only reason why I got offered at Bama is because one of the assistant coaches in my high school was college roommates with the offensive line coach at the time, Bob Conley. And, you know, they have these summer camps for kids, and I didn't even realize that this is how these kids are getting recruited, because they go to these camps, they run a 40, it's kind of like a combine, they play 7-on-7, they do individual drills. And this is where these colleges first lay eyes on these kids. And so he you know, he went to the camp and, you know, told the coach, and Mike Shula was the coach at the time, and he was like, you know, this is a really good kid, hard worker. Worst case scenario, he's going to be a great special teams player for you. And I think they just kind of gave him the thumbs up and, you know, appreciate it, boss. But I know one of their top recruits didn't qualify academically. So, like, now they have this open scholarship. There's 2 weeks before the two-a-day start. Everybody else is signed, going to wherever they're going, except your boy.
Yeah.
So they bring me out on the visit, and man, I've been working my ass off all summer. I didn't even know. I think I was more ignorant to how the recruiting process worked. I just felt like I had until the season started to get a scholarship. So, man, I kept working out, you know, kept training, you know, and you know, it's funny because I lied. You know, I was probably like 200 pounds, 205 max. But I'm walking around with Mike Shula, and he's like, man, how much do you weigh? I'm like, man, I'm 215, man. And he was like, okay, we're going to go get on the scale. And if you're a pound under 215, we're not going to offer you. So, man, my heart just stopped and shattered and crumbled. And so I was like, all right. So I went and got on the scale, and the scale was broke. So it didn't work. So, like, these stars aligned for me to go to Alabama.
It was
like, there was really no other place for me to go. I just feel like that was in the universe for me to go to the University of Alabama. And they offered me on my official visit. I signed, and, the guys were like, man, do you want to go out? I was like, nah, player, I'm straight. I got my scholarship. So I went home for about a week, and then my mom bought me this trunk for my clothes. I think I had one pair of shoes and like 2 pair of shorts, like a couple shirts, not a whole lot. And she dropped me off to the airport on her way to work, and I was like, bye, Eryk, that kind of thing. So that's how I got to Alabama.
And so then what was your time like? Because I know, so Shula was there when you first got there in 06, and then 05.
Yeah.
And then Saban came a couple years later.
Yeah, he came in 07.
In 07. What was it like first meeting Saban, and then kind of like the progression of your relationship as a player, and then like are you still in contact with him now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because in high school, the whole thing was Eryk, go get the ball, or everybody go get the ball. Like, you had your responsibilities on defense, otherwise they're going to score a touchdown every time. But at the end of the day, it was just like, man, go get the guy. So I had like no like real responsibility, didn't really know the X's and O's, and I thought that that's what college would be like, man, just go get the guy with the ball. Quickly did I learn that, no, dude, if you're supposed to be over here, be over here. Don't go farming somebody else's land, is what they used to always say. So I had to like really like learn the X's and O's, which was difficult because my whole life, like even through high school, it's just like go tackle the guy with the ball, or go get him or whatever. So I had to like take a step back, learn the X's and O's, learn how to watch film, and like learn how to be a football player instead of an athlete, just going and getting the ball kind of thing. And man, it's crazy the contrast between Shula and Saban, because Shula was a soft guy who tried to act hard, and the players saw through his fake persona. Like, he would cuss and apologize to the team for cussing. It was like, man, everybody in this locker room cusses. Everybody's been cussed at. There's nothing you can say worse than what my parents have said to me, So it's cool, dude. You don't have to apologize. But man, he would just run these crazy practices. Like, we were doing Oklahoma drills and tackling and angle tackling drills. And then so by the time the game comes, man, how are you supposed to win if all the starters are hurt and banged up and can't play at 100%? And he'd like restart practice, and it was just crazy. No, I don't think a whole lot. I think he's a great coach. I like Mike Shula. Like, he's a better coordinator than he is a head coach. And I just think that a lot of players didn't respect him. He wouldn't enforce rules. There were guys with like 13 failed drug tests. They didn't even know they failed the drug test. So he was having people take drug tests, and then people would fail, and there'd be no consequence. There was no consequence. The guys missing class. So, it's a trickle-down effect, So there's no discipline anywhere. Guys are out of position on the field, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do off the field. And he had this thing where, like, the seniors started no matter what. So there was, like, no competition. And so if you're an underclassman, you're not playing. So why should I practice hard?
Right.
Why should I watch film? Why should I lift more weights? Why should I do anything? I'll just wait my turn and, kind of thing. So when Saban got there, man, he flipped the script all the way around. It didn't matter if you were a freshman or a senior. Everybody's here to compete for a starting spot. And just because you started last week don't mean you starting this week. And guys would miss class, and they'd get reprimanded. And he had a point system. If you got up to X amount of points, you couldn't play, or you'd be suspended, or, there'd be some kind of punishment. If you failed the drug test, he would put you in like a drug education class, and you'd have to do like 6 months of continuing education. If you failed 2, you had to start all over. If you failed 3, he put you in a 21-day inpatient facility.
this is all things that nobody knows, really, right? I mean, he kept, like, were there players that actually did that?
Oh yeah, man. There's a lot of not a lot, but there were quite a few players that had to go to the 21-day inpatient. Yeah, and so so now you see guys be like, shit, he's a senior, but he not starting. He lost his job to a sophomore or a junior. So now, what does that do? The freshmen are licking their chops, be like, shit, if I go out here and ball out and practice, and then when because Bama, we get up by a lot.
Yeah.
So the younger guys get chances to play. So like, shit, I go out here and ball out and practice. They see that I'm working hard. I get my chance in the game and go ball out. Shit, I can get more playing time. In crunch time when the game is close, when everybody wants to play. No one wants to play the last 2 minutes of a 45-0 game.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. It's like, okay, it's your turn to go play. That means you suck. And, that guy's so much better than you. We're going to keep him into the last 2 minutes of the game. So nobody wants that mop-up duty. So when he came in, and then his practices ran a lot smoother. We only went full pads like 1 or 2 days a week, and it was minimal contact at that because he understood, I need my studs to be 100% so that they can perform on Saturday. And now it's to the point where if you go play for Saban, give him 3 years of your life, it's going to suck. You're not going to like it, especially a lot of these kids, they come from, they probably may not have the best socioeconomical background. They probably come from places where they're the best athlete on the field. So they're not very disciplined, and, is what I'm trying to get across. So you come give Nick Saban 3 years of your life, you're going to get a shot at the NFL. You're going to get a shot to be a millionaire. You're going to have a shot to have a successful NFL career. And, man, let's be honest, man. A lot of these kids, they're not coming to go get an economics degree.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Education wasn't on my mind at all when I was at Bama. I did get my degree. I got a degree. Just to kind of like make my parents happy because they were under the impression that you got to get a degree, kind of thing. But the NFL was what was on my mind, and that's where I wanted to get, and I was going to do everything in my power to get there. So didn't work out for me that way, and my degree is not really worth much. But it did open up doors to get jobs because no one wants to hire anybody with like a high school education. And I don't think that I was educated any more in college than I was in high school. Like maybe like higher math, but I was taking like women's studies classes, American literature before 1865, which I really didn't give a shit what Sylvia Plath had going on in the bell jar. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of stupid classes that I was taking. I felt if it wasn't for football, I would have wasted my time in college. So,
Do you have a favorite Nick Saban story?
Man, Nick Saban, he cusses a lot. And he don't let you off the hook. There was one time this guy named Tyrone King, he blew a coverage in practice. He was a DB. And Coach Saban, he was telling him, he's like, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I guess he was having a bad day or whatever, and he was like, I got it. And then, man, I'm telling you, for the hour and a half, he walked behind Tyrone King. He's like, you got it. You got it. And he just went off. And, like, he would go coach somebody else. And, it's amazing. The man doesn't miss a beat. He doesn't forget. And he was just on. He would go coach, and it would be quiet for, 10 minutes at practice or whatever. And then he would circle right back around and just get on his ass again. And for a whole practice, he was just on his ass. And this is the cool thing about Nick Saban. I say that, but if he thinks you're going to contribute to the team, he makes you talk to this shrink who we call as the wizard. He's this old man with, this stringy white hair that's all out. He kind of looks like the guy from Doc from Back to the Future.
Okay.
He's this old dude with white hair everywhere and a white beard. Turns out this dude used to be a POW interrogator in Vietnam. So this dude really knew how to get like deep down in there. And he learns how to coach each individual player. So like if you're my quarterback and I yell at you and then you start playing like shit, what good does that do for me to yell at you?
Yeah.
Or if she's a defensive player and I yell at her and it elevates her game, that's how I'm going to coach you. That's how I'm going to talk to you, kind of thing. And I think that he doesn't get enough credit because he really focuses on the mental part, the mental aspect of the game. And I don't think that a lot of coaches, go that far to go hire a shrink to, kind of learn about your background. And then he goes and gives this report. He's like, oh, I can yell and cuss at Eryk and it's going to make him perform better. Or if I yell at Yasmin, she's going to play like shit.
Yeah.
So, he remembers that. And, so he tailors his coaching style per player. And so obviously he felt like Tyrone King could, handle this cussing and this yelling at. And, man, another one, and this is probably the funniest. I won't even say any names, but Tyrone King's one of my good friends. So we all enjoy this story every time we see each other. But, man, he also has guys on diet, goes and see dietitians, especially like the linemen. Because I don't know if you know offensive and defensive linemen, man, these guys are lazy and they like to eat, So one guy was supposed to, he weighed, I don't know, we'll say 250. And he's supposed to keep his weight between 240 and 255 or whatever. Man, they give everybody pizzas after every practice. At the end of practice on 2-a-days, like during the summer.
Okay.
And but if you're overweight, if you're on this weight plan, you don't get the pizza. You get like a sandwich or a salad or whatever, something more healthy. But for me, I was smaller. I was on the catfish diet. I just eat everything all the time, So, man, this dude put on 10 pounds, this lineman. Overnight, he put on 10 pounds. And, man.
How does that even work?
Man, I don't know. But he did it. He put on 10 pounds overnight. And in front of everybody. And I'm making Nick Saban sound like an asshole. But, man, he was just yelling. He's like, how do you put on 10 pounds overnight? And he's like, man, I didn't eat anything. I only ate with it. He's like, bullshit. There are no calories in the air. And, man, he would just have these one-liners that would just, man, he's like, you can't help but laugh at it. Like, even the dude getting cussed at, he's just, laughs at it because, like, man, no calories in the air, man. This dude should have, he should do stand-up comedy, man. He's a funny dude. Yeah.
Other question I have a little separate is there's a lot of debate with student athletes being paid and you being like a high level student athlete when you were. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously you're probably like, yeah, I want to get paid. But do you think student athletes in general should be paid?
I think so. But maybe not like in terms of like a game check like they get in the NFL. The University of Alabama profits like $18 million per home game.
Wow.
I think last year they made like $142 million. And the athletes see none of that. And I get it. That goes to like the coach's salary. That goes to like better facilities and things like that. But what I think should happen is that you should get a trust. Like once you start eligibility, this trust, they put X amount of dollars. And I think the big issue is, the guys at Alabama, they generate so much more money. And like Louisiana Monroe, they don't produce as much money. So how do you balance that out? And I don't think you should. If I'm a top-tier athlete playing a top-tier program, I should get compensated as such. And if I'm not generating that much, it's unfortunate, but those are the cards that you were dealt. For whatever reason, you're not at Alabama. So why should you be getting paid what they get paid at Alabama? Even in the NFL, like the quarterbacks aren't paid the same. Yeah. So what difference does it make how much who gets paid? But what I think they should do is they should have a trust. And they should give you a stipend that you can live on, pay your bills. And that's what they did when I was in school. We got $1,000 a month. I don't know if you've ever tried to live off $1,000 a month, but it's not possible. And so you got gas, cell phone, light bill, rent, things like that. So you get paid on the first. By the second, you ain't got but 50 cents left in your account. So it makes it difficult. But I think you should have a trust that, builds interest and they deposit more money. And then once your eligibility runs out, whether you declare for the draft or here's your money, here's your start. Because a lot of them kids, they don't make it to the NFL.
Right.
So now, I got this piece of shit degree that the school helped me get because we all know, like I said earlier, I'm not here to get an education. I'm here to play football, and everybody knows it. So, like, my degree is in health studies. Guess how many times I've used that? 0.
Yeah.
So, and they kind of, like, made me choose that degree. Like, I want to do kinesiology. The academic advisor was like, those classes are only offered during times of practice, and me being 18 and young and dumb. And I was like, all right, cool, health studies sounds great. And when I was like a sophomore or junior, I realized that wasn't the truth. And you go to change your major, but the NCAA says every year you're in school, you have to have X amount of your degree completed. So by the time I go to try and change my degree, guess what, Eryk? You're not going to be eligible because now you won't have 60% of your degree completed or whatever. So, I think that since I'm not the only person in that situation, right? A lot of these kids, like I said, they're not going there to get an education. One, I don't think college should be an issue, should be a thing. I think there should be like a developmental league that I can go play in, like they do, like in other countries with soccer. Like
they tried that new league. I don't know if you saw the AAF. What kind of
failed. But all those are former college players. There is no like from high school
I see what you mean.
to this developmental league to the NFL. There's just college to the NFL. So they're using college has the developmental league, right? And they're making a lot of money, and the kids ain't seeing nothing. So I think once my eligibility is done, here's a check, or you can continue to leave it in there and let it grow, because there are guys that are going to make millions of dollars. So they've already had this trust that they started since they were 18. Now they get done playing when they're 25, or the average NFL career is 3 years. So you get done when you're 22. By the time you're 25, you're done. But there are guys who play longer, who have 10, 15-year careers. Now you have this trust that's been gathering interest for 20 years, so you're good. But even the guys who don't make it, here's $50,000 or here's $100,000. You go blow it if you want to, because they don't teach you financial literacy.
Yeah.
That's not one of the classes you take,
right.
Unless you're an accountant. So a lot of these guys, they got an uncle or a mom who, like I said, not the best socioeconomics. So maybe they come out early and don't get drafted as high. So now they just lost millions of dollars that way. I just think they should have a trust or get a check at the end of their thing. The school made this much money while you were in school.
Right.
Here's a percentage of that for all the kids who declare for the draft or run out of eligibility or something, just to give them like a head start or whatever, because some of these kids, they don't have mom and dad that they can go move back home with. And some of these kids are from the hood, they're from the ghetto. They're not trying to go back in that direction. But, like the regular college kids, probably not from that situation. So they can go back home, they can go back in and live with mom and dad, or who's probably paying for their school anyway. So, the biggest argument that I would get in with the general public is like, oh, why are you bitching? You get to go to school for free. I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
I generate more money for this school than you'll ever pay in tuition, and I pay with my hide. Like, I play with blood and sweat and my body. You know what I'm saying? You have parents that are paying for this, or loans or grants or whatever. So, if you look at it, I'm paying a lot more than you're paying. But people, they don't like to see that side of the argument.
No, I think what's really hard is for a lot of those football players. You're right. Not even at Alabama, best program in the country. Not all of them go to the NFL. It's where do most of your teammates that maybe didn't go to the NFL, do you still keep in touch with them? Like, what are they up to in their post life? Because you don't really hear about them after, and I think it's kind of interesting. Like, I think there should be more programs to just like help those kids, because they never, I'm sure you didn't have the same school schedule that a non-athlete did.
Sure.
So what, do you have any idea where
a lot of them fall back into coaching because, like I said, they didn't go to school to get an education. So what is what they know? They know football.
Right.
So, okay, football didn't work out for me. I'm not the millionaire that I thought I would. let me circle back and holler at Nick Saban for a coaching position. Or, all these coaches, they go to Bama, coach there for 2 or 3 years, and they go get a head coaching or coordinator job. So a lot of these guys, once it doesn't work out in the NFL, but then the NCAA comes out with a bullshit rule that you have to be you can only be a graduate assistant within 7 years of graduating. All right, so what does that mean? I make it to the NFL. Luckily, I played for 5 years. No one knows what they want to do after they get done playing football because they didn't know that they weren't going to play the next season. So, they spend the next 2 years trying to get back in the league or maybe go to Canada or play arena ball. But now they've graduated over 7 years. So now you can't go back to college because they won't let you be a graduate assistant. Or maybe it's 5 years or whatever. The window's not big enough is the point I'm trying to get to. So now what do you do? So, it's just I don't know, man. I think it's kind of, bullshit how the NCAA handles athletes and former athletes.
Yeah. I was watching this morning, actually, 2009 National Championship game.
It's a good game.
With your big game, I would say game sealing tackle.
Sure.
Forced fumble. For people that don't know, 2009, Alabama, Texas, National Championship. They know. They know. 24-21, and then you come in. He didn't even see you. And that was, you had the most. I think it was you had 7 tackles or something.
Yeah.
It's like a game high. Take me through that game. Take me before the game. Are you nervous? And then once you make that tackle, you're on the biggest stage probably ever that one can really be on in this country, at least.
Sure. So it's funny because, you look at people on film and it's like, oh, man, that guy's not that big. But they gave us and the Texas players passes to go to Disneyland right here at the same time. So everybody, we were in our Bama jumpsuits and they were in their bright orange or burnt orange, jumpsuits or whatever. And I just remember walking past the offensive lineman. Man, these guys were 6'8", 350, 360, and I was like, "Oh my God, that is a huge human being." But then once the game started, man, they were so slow. They weren't functionally strong, and I was I think I played that game at 220, 225. So they have well over 100 pounds on me, and I just remember locking up with them. I'm just like, man, this dude isn't strong at all, and so we knew from the jump, defense, we were going to be straight. They had a really good defense that year too. So our whole game plan was for Colt McCoy and to keep him in the pocket. And I think in the first quarter, it was they had 1st and goal from the 3 and had to settle for a field goal. So we already knew what time it was, man. They're not going to score. And if they do score, it's only going to be 3 instead of 7 points. And so like I said, our whole game plan was for Colt McCoy because he was just running all over everybody. And so we didn't want him to beat us with his feet, with his arm, which we didn't think he was capable of doing. He ends up getting hurt. And I'm glad that you brought this up because I'm from Texas and I have to have this conversation every time I go home. Was to keep Colt McCoy in the pocket. And when he got hurt, we didn't know anything about Garrett Gilbert. And failed to make an adjustment to the 4th quarter of the game. But Garrett Gilbert was happier than a pig in shit to not have any pressure put on him. He was just standing back there in the pocket, boom, Shipley, and we just, picking us apart with Shipley. And then it finally dawned on us in the 4th quarter that, man, we should probably rush this dude because he's not even looking to run. This dude has all the high school quarterback records, pass yards, and things like that in Texas high school history, which, man, guys like Matt Stafford and guys like that have come out of Texas, man. So he's in an elite league of high school quarterback. And so once we started rushing him, he kind of fell apart. And on that particular play, it was probably the best game I played in college, my whole career. I think I had 7 tackles, 4 for loss, batted ball, sack, forced fumble. I played a really good game.
Were you nervous before the game?
Nah, not at all. It was where you could feel the vibe in the locker room and at practice the whole week. Everybody was just on the same page, and that was probably the best game we played defensively, collectively as a team. And man, you could just feel it in the air and the atmosphere in the locker room during practice, after practice, after the game, everybody was just like a one single-celled organism on defense. We really don't meet with offense like that too much. You know, we run plays against our offense and stuff, but you know, the defense usually shut shit down because it's like they're running the same plays against us. So we kind of know what's coming anyway. So, but man, it was just the vibe and the chemistry before the game and then during the game, and then that first and goal and they couldn't score, that was huge. And Colt McCoy gets hurt, which, you know, everybody knew that he really didn't get hurt. He was making a business decision. And, you know, he was like, man, I'm not taking this shit for the next, you know, 45 minutes of my life. So as far as the defense goes, we knew what time it was. We knew. And then, like I said, the guys weren't like fast or athletic. They were just big, and they were offensive linemen. They were just in the way kind of thing. So, man, we knew what time it was before the game even started.
So then after that point, that's your last game at Bama.
Yep.
Then you get signed as a free agent to the Browns. And then you kind of bounce around from the Browns, Canadian League. There was one other league.
Arena football. Somewhere.
Which one?
Arena football.
Arena football. Talk to me about kind of like the process of, you know, kind of bouncing around a little, and then like what's going through your head after you're maybe, you know, you're on your like third team, and then you kind of, you know, kind of gravitate away towards football.
So I got on with Cleveland. I didn't get drafted. I signed a free agent deal, but still, you know.
Were you upset? What was, like, what?
I wasn't upset because I already knew what time it was. I already knew it was like, man, the NFL might not work out. It might be in the future. It might not. It's a great deal if it does, but if it doesn't, man, be prepared. You know, I was like, I tell myself, at least you got your degree, which, looking back, you know, I think I kind of pre-framed myself for the letdown instead of being like, man, fuck that. You're going to play forever until you say it's over with. And, you know, I just think that I could have went about the mental part a lot better than I did. Like, I just kind of, man, if it's okay if you know, don't make it kind of thing. And looking back, you know, I was 22. I'm 32 now. I'm just like, man, you should have had a different mindset.
Do you have any regrets?
I don't have any regrets, but if I could go back in time, I would have talked to myself a little bit differently at that period of my time, period in my life. But as far as like the effort I put forth, and you know, I think I was a little like over football at that point, because I started to see like the business side of it, and rather than, man, why do I have to run this 40 or do this bench press? Just watch the game film. That's all you need to see. So I just my mindset wasn't where I would have wanted it to be, like looking back on it now. And but man, you know, I was like, you know, young and dumb, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm here now, you know. So I'm finna you know, try to make the most of it. So I get cut in Cleveland, and like 2 days later I get signed by or maybe it was like a week later. Anyways, short time later I get signed by the Canadian League. I was like, shit, it's Canadian football, so it's not like NFL, so I'm for sure finna ball out. I get cut from there, so I'm like, oh. And I play arena football. And then it was just like lawless, you know. You know, I was used from coming from like a structured program where everybody's held accountable for what they do on and off the field. And man, guys were like starting fights in the middle of a game. I was like, what are you doing? And so, you know, it just wasn't fulfilling for me anymore. And you know, I had some tryouts with the UFL, which was like kind of like a, you know, developmental league, so to speak. I think they had like 4 teams, and you know, it was a bunch of former players. So I went to the tryout, and I thought I killed it. You know, I was you know, doing defensive lineman drill, pass rushing against dudes that had played from like the Saints and the Colts and stuff, and I thought I did, you know, really well. You know, and then you know, I didn't get picked up from there, so I finished the season of arena ball, and I, you know, sat down with myself, and I was just like, yo, if it's not the NFL, then, you know, fuck it, I don't want to play anymore. And I already had a son back in Alabama. So I was like, man, I guess it's over with. I'll go, not that like being a father was on like a second, wasn't like a priority for me, but I was like, man, I'm only going to be young and able to do this, and I want to make as much money as I can playing football,
Right.
While I can. And but it turns out, man, I didn't make any money playing football, and so I went back to Alabama, and then man, I was doing the 9-to-5 thing. And a lot of people, like the biggest misconception about me is people think that I went straight from football to MMA. And that could not be further from the truth.
No, I watched the, I think you have it's like a little Vimeo documentary.
Yeah,
The one on your Twitter, it's like the pinned one. It's really well done. And I think you mentioned that in there. You talk about how it's not like you picked up MMA and just started punching. It was like there's a gap of time, right?
Yeah,
that where you're working.
Years.
What were you working as?
Man, I did everything, man. I was a janitor. I had my college degree, which, like I said, wasn't worth shit. I was a janitor. I cleaned factories, cleaned apartments. When people move out and then somebody has to go in there and clean up all the shit that the people left so that they can get it ready for the next person. I was a janitor. There was a part where I didn't even have a place to live. Like, I would stay on somebody's couch when I had my son. If I didn't have my son, like, I would sleep in my car or get a hotel room or whatever. I was cleaning piss out of like I was a janitor. And then I worked for Coca-Cola. I did end up getting a job with the government, working up there in Huntsville, which was cool. But man, I thought everything would be gravy, man. I like held out for this job. Like, it took me 10 months to get this job. I failed the security clearance thing at first because, I was talking about earlier is being born in the Philippines. They thought I was some kind of, terrorist, which I'm not sure how many of those come out of the Philippines anyways. So I didn't get the job at first, and then I had to talk to this private investigator and had this whole dialogue, and end up getting this job, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm working for the government. My life is straight. I'm satisfied. Life is peachy. But man, I just sat at a desk, and I would go to work, come home, go to work, come home, go to work, come home, and I just found myself being frustrated, just being pissed off all the time. And I'm just like, man, I'm a happy person. Why am I mad all the time? And it's because I didn't have an outlet, and so I started training jiu-jitsu. I wrestled a little bit in high school. I liked that. So I started doing jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh, okay, word, this is fun. And then I started, through a friend of mine, through a mutual friend, I met Walt Harris, who's a UFC heavyweight. He wasn't in the UFC at the time, but every bit just as big and as athletic as he is now, and just as good. He was like, yeah, man, come to the gym. So I would come to the gym, which was in Birmingham. And so I would drive from like Huntsville to Tuscaloosa every weekend to get my son, which is a 2.5-hour drive. I would come back to Birmingham, which is like halfway, stay at a friend's house with my son, and I would train. And I walked into the gym, and the coach was like, can you fight? And in my head, I'm like, man, you know what? I'm the 5 out of 6 kids. And
had you fought? Like, did you get into fights when you were younger?
I fought all the time when I was a kid. So I was like, hell yeah, I could fight. And now I see it's funny. Now I'm in the UFC and I meet people and they're like, I'm undefeated in street fights. And I was like, there was a time where I was too, Buster. And but man, I just always been like a scrappy dude, man. It's I guess it's in my blood. So I was like, hell yeah, I could fight. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't even think I had a mouthpiece, but he was like, go get in the ring with him. And I was like, him? Like pointing at Walt. He's like, yeah. So I was like, all right.
For those of you who don't know, Walt is he's a big heavyweight.
Yeah. He walks around like 260, 270. Yeah. He's 6'4", super fast, left-handed, like super athletic. Played basketball in college. So
how'd that work out for you?
It didn't work out for me at all. I spent probably 4 minutes and 55 seconds of a 5-minute round in the corner with my hands above my face. And it's not like he's a malicious dude. Like, he wasn't like trying to kill me, but he's a big dude and he's very fast. So with speed comes power. And, you know, it's not like he was trying to knock me out or anything, but, you know, he was touching me a lot and hard. So but then I fell in love with MMA right then and there. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. You know, this is going to be a struggle for me. I have to learn from scratch. So I really enjoyed not necessarily getting beaten, but it was a very humbling experience. You know, I played ball in college. You know, people say I played in the NFL. I don't say that, but I haven't played in any games. But you know, professional athlete in one sport, and he's like, man, here I don't know anything. You know, I don't know shit. So, you know, it was a really humbling experience, and I fell in love with it right then and there. I was like, man, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm gonna do. And man, I just trained as much and as often as possible.
Do you think it kind of, in a way, saved you maybe? Just because, like, I'm thinking, you know, you're 22 and just probably a few months removed, you had made, like, I mean, you're in the national championship game, and then you talk about, you know, working these jobs that I'm sure you probably never imagined prior that you'd be working. Like, how do you keep your morals up, and how do you keep that positivity? And is it MMA that, you know, when you say you used it as an outlet, like, do you really feel like it kind of, in a way, saved you and gave you that other space and activity to work and to be yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, I did that for like 2 years, like, you know, just bouncing around from job to job. And when I got that government job, you know, I was, like I said, I thought I was set. And I just, like, you know, it just, MMA gave me that outlet. You know, there's nothing that'll, and I'm not saying like make you happier, but there's nothing like blowing off steam by punching a bag or hitting mitts or wrestling around and doing jiu-jitsu. Those things for me was like, that was my peace, that was my zen. Even if I was losing or getting beat up in sparring and in training and stuff, you know, I didn't see it as like getting beat up. It's like, okay, don't do that anymore. So it's like it was like mental stimulation as long as the physical aspect of things. I'm a physical dude. Like, I have a lot of energy. I like to be up. I like to be moving around. So like just living that lifestyle of, like, you know, coming home, going to work, comes like, man, life is not supposed to be lived like this, man. I'm supposed to be like traveling and meeting new people and doing and experiencing different things. This sucks. I don't know who and how and why anybody would want to live this way. And but man, it turns out I'm the weird one. Like, there's a lot of people who like that, you know. And when I had that job in Huntsville, man, they didn't give me any work, and I had a lot of freedom. There was no clock to punch. So they would just say, you know, make sure you work 8 hours a day. I could come in at 6 and leave at 3, or come in at 8 and leave at 5. So I would come in at 8 and leave at like 2, just because, man, I just, you know, I was bored. And there was a point where I was like, man, I really don't care what happened. So, man, I would like take 2 weeks off and go train at American Top Team, or not even show up to work on Friday. It's not like they were missing me, you know, because they weren't giving me any work to do. And then my contract ran up. And they weren't going to rehire me for obvious reasons. Not mad, and I completely understand. So I made my run to Birmingham. I was living in Huntsville, was getting good training in Huntsville, but Birmingham was the spot. You know, that's where the gym that I was fighting out of was in Birmingham. And I would like drive this, you know, it's 100 miles from Huntsville to Birmingham. I would drive down every Monday to spar, and I'd be there every weekend to train. And I made my run, man. Me and the owner of the apartment, or the person who ran the apartment, were real cool. So I just went to her and I was like, hey, you know, my contract, you know, I lost my job. You know, can I break my lease? And they were like, sure. You know, it's one of the perks of playing for Alabama. It's like, we don't have any pro teams, so if you ball out for Bama, you're like a little celebrity, you know, on the most minuscule scale that there is. So I was, you know, cool. So I rented a U-Haul, packed up my stuff, and, you know, didn't even have a game plan. Just put my stuff in a storage unit in Birmingham. Was kind of couch surfing until I got my own spot And then I was working as a customer service representative for a car auction company, which now you're dealing with people's money, so you can imagine the phone calls that I would get. You know, people cussing me out and telling me what they're not going to do. And that, you know, at this point, like, I'm training every day. You know, I wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, train till 7, take a shower, go to work, sleep on my hour break, my lunch break or whatever, finish the rest of the day, and then go straight to the gym and then train till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So, you know, now I have an outlet. So, yeah, like, the middle of my day sucks, but, you know, I'm training and I'm fighting as an amateur. I think I had the first gym I trained at is really a shitty gym. Poor coaching. He let me fight like 2 weeks or 2 months after I started training. It was my first MMA fight. He didn't even show up. I had somebody else wrap my hands. I asked another fighter who was fighting after me to corner me, and I was like, bro, you don't even have to say anything. I just need someone to hold the stool and give me water in between rounds. I had a boxing match and an MMA fight in the same night. I lost the boxing match, a split decision, and the MMA fight, I knocked the dude out in 50 seconds. So I was like, man, maybe MMA is the way for me to go. And man, I was fighting every other weekend, which I don't recommend it, you know, for anybody.
I feel like it's not
good. You're not getting any better.
Yeah.
Like, you are getting like experience in the cage, but after a certain point, it's almost irrelevant. You know, after you have that enough cage time, it's time to go pro. So you need to take time in between fights and develop as a fighter everything in your game. But man, I was just like knocking everybody out and, you know, doing really well. And I was making, you know, because I played for Bama, people wanted to sponsor me and stuff, so I was making a little bit of money. And I think like 2 years, I had like 24 fights as an amateur, but like my last five fights, I moved across town to train at the gym that I still train at to this day, just because, you know, the coaching was better. The other coach is like, he lied about everything. Like, every word that came out of his mouth was a lie. He was never on time for anything. So I went to the other spot, Spartan Fitness, where I train at now, and everything ran like clockwork. Training is from here to here. We're going to do this on this day. People are on time or relatively close to it. And so, you know, my career just progressed and blossomed, or started to. It really didn't, like, blossom really until I met this one over here, who kind of pulled me out of a black hole.
How so we talked a little bit before it started. How did you meet? I'm going to start with Yasmin, because apparently it's a little different story. We're going to go with you second.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, one night I went out. I was in Birmingham studying the master program at UAB. And one night I went out with some boys that they did jiu-jitsu. They are all Brazilians. And I saw Eryk coming. We were at a bar, and I saw Eryk coming, walking around like 3 a.m. I was ready to go home. And I was like, oh, look at him. He looks Brazilian. And the guys were like, no, he's not Brazilian, but we know him. I'm like,
Was it love at first sight?
Yeah. Kind of. I
He
looked
just had
at him,
that
I'm
swag,
like,
baby. You know.
He had the black power hair, and I was like, oh my God. And then I asked my friends, like, how do you guys know him? Oh, he trains some jiu-jitsu with us sometimes. So they asked me, do you want us to introduce you? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? But then I saw Eryk had a girl with him. I'm like, oh, you know what?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm not doing this because, you know, he has a girl here with him. They're like, no, it's not his girlfriend. I'm like, no, forget it. Just, you know, let's forget it, and I go home. So I just looked at him, walked around, saw the girl with him. I'm like, okay, that's it. Let me go home, and end of the night for me. That's how we met.
And then from there?
And then from there, when I left, my friend came to Eryk and showed picture or something. I don't know what he did. And he's like, my friend, can you give me your number? I will give you my friend's number, or whatever he did. And then he texted me right away I was sleeping already. He was like, hey, I just got Eryk's number for you. I'm like, man, he had a girl with him. Don't do it. He's like, no, it's not his girl. So social media would tell me right away. I'm like, in social media, like, Eryk has a girl. And well, apparently not. If he does, he's hiding. So we started like just texting. I'm like, hey, saw you last night. You know, do you have a girl or not? And he's like, no.
So what's the Eryk Anders version?
Just so you know, that's as close to the truth as she's ever told that story.
Yeah,
That's about how it happened. I had my my pro debut that night in Tuscaloosa, which is like 45 minutes away. We drove back to Birmingham because there's not much to do in Tuscaloosa in the summer. So we came back to Birmingham, and man, I had just won. So you already know,
Yeah.
you know, I was, you know, not on this planet. I had been drinking and, you know, having a good time, and man, I would notice her, you know, 10 out of 10 times in any crowd. Like, she's a really good looking woman. So that's just how, you know, messed up I was. And, you know, she came and sat next to me, and I didn't even know. So, and then, you know, I went with my girlfriend, so it's not like I was like trying not to look like she wasn't my girl. It was just like a little, you know, a little thing I had, you know, with me for the night. You know, not to be like misogynistic or nothing like that, but she knew what her role was, so it's all good. And yeah, her friend came up to me and was like, man, my friend is really into you. I was like, word. So we started texting, and, you know, I got her over to the house. You know, I was like, hey, oh, so you speak Portuguese, blase, blase. You know, come teach me some Portuguese. At the time, I had no interest in learning Portuguese. I just, you know, saw that she was a really good looking woman, and I, you know, wanted to sleep with her, you know. So, but then she came over, and, you know, she's the first woman that I had met that had more to offer than like just her vagina to me. You know, she was a lawyer. She spoke 5 languages. She was an entrepreneur. She was going to school to get a master's. You know, she had all these things going for her, and I was like, oh, okay. You know, I'm not gonna push my luck. And, you know, so it took me a while to make a move. And, you know, later she tells me that she thought I was gay because it took me so long. Like, I would come over, she would cook, and I would eat, and then go to sleep and wake up and leave.
Were you nervous?
In the morning. I wanted her to stay around, man. I didn't want her to think that it was just that, you know, just a sex thing. I was like, man, she's got all this going on for her. So, like I said, you know, she has so much to offer me as a person. And so I was like, this is one I need to like keep around for as long as I can anyways. And if I just try to, you know, sleep with her too soon, she's going to be like, oh, he's just, you know, one of those guys. A lot of women like hold it against you if you're a football player. And especially if you're in a MMA fight, it's like, oh, you're just like you're like a meathead. All you want is like, you know, a lot of women and not looking for nothing. And I really wasn't looking for anything, but man, you know, when something like that cross your path, you have to, you know, shoot your shot.
And so, what's it like? I mean, we'll get into some of your own bodybuilding and what you do on the side, but what's it like, I guess, in a role as a wife of a UFC fighter? I'm always kind of curious because, or even like the wife of a boxer, you know, seeing your husband in a ring or an octagon, sometimes getting the shit beat out of them, you know, bloody,
It happens.
broken leg, you know, just like, I mean, there's been some scary, you know.
Yeah, I'm
like,
a very calm person. I'm not anxious or anything, so I trust him so much that I always bet money on him. In all fights, I bet money.
Really?
Yeah, so I trust him 100%. I know what he's doing, and I trust, like, you know, I know he's going to win. I always bet he's going to win, so I don't have any fear of losing money.
His last few fights.
It's okay, though. I keep betting on him. But I think the main thing when he has, like, the day of the fight, the days before the fight, if he has to cut too much weight, he's like knowing my place that, you know, he's in a bad spot now. He's cutting weight. He's going to be moody. So I try to balance the kids and him out so the kids don't feel that thing. So I try to balance everything out. It's not my time, it's his time. So I have to put myself in the background, and I know my place. So I'm like, okay, it's his time to be moody. He's going to be moody. It's fine. It's his time to shine. It's his time to shine. So I think it's very important that I know my place when it's fight time. I know my place when he's cutting weight. So I think that's the hardest thing sometimes that I see women, you know, to put themselves like in the background a little bit when it's, you know, their time. You know, I try to balance the kids and like, you know, hold up. He's a little moody because he's doing this. Your kids don't understand, but let's do something else.
And what about, like, I mean, obviously, win is, everyone's excited, but how is it like when you see your husband hurt sometimes? Does it affect you at all, or you just know he'll be fine?
I know he's a very tough guy. So
Yes.
what worries me more is that sometimes I see it's bad, and I know he's not gonna say like it's bad. I have seen him in the hospital in São Paulo when he fought Thiago Marreta, and actually right after the fight, I know he had a concussion, and he would be like, "I'm not going to the hospital." I'm like, "Eryk, you are going to the hospital." "I'm not going to the hospital." I'm like, "Eryk, I guess you are." And then the coach tried to help him out, like, "Okay, if he doesn't want to go to the hospital," I'm like, "Listen, he's my husband. If he had a concussion and he's hurt, I'm going to change his diapers. I'm going to take care of him." And then the commission came and said, like, "Hey," they were Brazilian. They're like, "Tell your husband in English, because I don't think he's getting it. If he doesn't go to the hospital, we can take the money from the fight." And I'm like, "Eryk, you are going. They're not going to take the money." So like these things are hard because at the same time, emotion, everything comes to him. And I know he's tougher than, he doesn't want to show that he's hurt or anything like that, but take care of him. I'm always there, like after surgeries, I'm like, okay, I hope it's the last one.
Have you had a lot of surgeries?
I think I had 3 in 2018.
Yeah.
I had my elbow. I broke my hand against Theodoro, and then I had my nose fixed.
Do you feel it do you feel like right when, I mean, you have so much adrenaline, I imagine, when you're fighting. Do you feel like a broken hand or a broken nose?
My elbow had been an issue for a while. And
what was it about your elbow?
I had a pinched nerve in my elbow and bone spurs, and it was funny because, not funny, but man, this is all the range of motion I had in my elbow, which if you're trying to fight, it's not good because it's like you can't block a whole lot coming from that side. And my fingers kept going numb, and at first I just kind of let it ride because I would just wake up in the night and kind of do this, and then over time it would get worse and worse, and the pain never went away. And after I fought Machida, I was like, all right, I'm probably gonna have to sit down for a little bit anyways. So let me go and fix my elbow. Then I fought Tim Williams, and man, I'm pretty sure that he broke my nose, and so now I can't breathe out of my nose. I go fight Thiago Santos. I didn't get any injuries, but it didn't help anything. And then I broke my hand against Theodoro, which I knew it was broke, but at the same time, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're in the middle of a fight, and it's not like, I don't know, I think I'm weird when it comes to pain. Like, it doesn't hurt like other people describe. Like, I've torn my Achilles, and I've seen people on the ground like screaming bloody murder after tearing their Achilles. And I tore my Achilles. I got up, I looked down, I was like, okay, my foot's not dislocated. I didn't know that I had torn it, and I tried to take a step. My heel didn't come off the ground, and I was like, oh, shit. So I tried to take another step, same thing. I think I tore my Achilles. And, man, so I walked to the sideline, took off my cleats. I could see the gap in my heel from where it had torn, and it was all soft and stuff. And I went home instead of straight to the hospital, took a shower, and then had my roommate at the time take me to the hospital for my Achilles. I broke my hand against Theodore. I threw it and I hit him in the top of the head, and I was like, man, I think I just broke my hand. As I'm continuing to have this conversation in my head as I'm in the middle of this fight. And after the fight, I took my gloves off, and I did like this, and I could see the bone going up and down. And I was like, yeah, that's broke. But it really didn't hurt. We fought on the prelims. I took a shower, did the medical thing. The doctor was like, I don't know if it's broke. I was like, yeah, it's broke. And took a shower, and I went and sat in the stands with the family and watched the rest of the card. My oldest son, who's going on 10, he's probably pushing 90 pounds. Carried him out of the stadium with my hand. It didn't hurt until after surgery. After surgery, that's when it really started to hurt, because they put the screws in there, so they take a drill, put the plate over, set the bone, put the plate over the bone, and drill like 7 screws.
Is that the scar from it?
Yeah, into the bone. So I was like, man, for like a week, man, it was just. I don't do pain pills, but man, I had to do something, man, because it just is like a constant 24-hour throb. And I went probably 2 days after surgery, and after that, I was like, man, I give up, man. This shit's not going anywhere.
So I kind of want to, you touched on Machida and some of the fights. I kind of want to go through a few of them. You can tell when the UFC wants to promote somebody.
Sure.
And I know they want to promote you, they call you on short notice. You make your short notice, your debut is short notice fight. You come in there, you you knock out Natal.
Uh-huh.
And then, what you have, it's Natal, Perez, and then you fight main event, UFC fight night against Lyoto Machida, former champ, legend. Like, what's going through your mind at that point? And, a lot of people scored it. I think it was like 16 of like the 23 major media outlets scored it in your favor. What's going through your mind? In my eyes, I think you won it too. I'm obviously also a little biased because I know you now as well, but I also genuinely do think you won the fight. But also, what's it like for you, after that fight where you feel like you won, and you didn't get the nod, and then where do you feel like how did that kind of shape the rest of your UFC career from that point on?
Well, that fight in particular, I kind of feel like I was a little hard on myself because, he moved around so much. I would hit him and I would see his eyes roll back into the back of his head like he was ready to go. And instead of like stepping back and throwing more punches and actually knocking him out, I kind of started to grapple with him. Like I clinched him up against the cage and tried to take him down and stuff. And, just as soon as the fight was over, I wasn't sure how they scored it. I felt like I won the middle 3 rounds. The first one is probably the most obvious. The first one, he kicked my leg out from underneath me. I spent most of the fight on my back with him standing over me. Rounds 2, 3, and 4, I thought went to me.
Mm-hmm.
With round 5, coin flip. So. I think I was a little hard on myself. I was like, man, you should have done this. You should have done that.
Are you thinking about the score in your head when you fight?
Not really. After the fight's over, it just kind of – because I was just thinking I was going to knock him out at any moment. I was like, the next punch I throw, it's it for him. He can't take too much more. He was leaking all over the place. He was bleeding. I think I had knocked him down or dropped him 3 times. I was taking him down. I had a couple takedowns. So I thought I was – winning the fight and didn't realize that they were counting his little, he's kicking me with his big toe. So in my head, I'm like, man, that ain't shit. There's no way they count that as a significant strike. Every time I hit him, he falls or, he falls up against the cage or whatever. So I was like, man, I'm for sure winning this fight. But after that fight, I was like, man, I can't believe that, I let that get away from me. And I wasn't even breathing hard after the 5th round. Like, so I just felt like, if you're going to lose a decision, you should be like completely exhausted, can't move, just gave it everything you had. Instead of, I think I was just kind of, that's about the time I I was falling in love with my power in my left hand. So every punch was just like trying to knock his block off. Instead of this touching him, setting up shots, I was chasing him instead of cutting him off. But man, I think you should take a few days to really think about the fight and to rewatch the fight and just let the dust clear, let the dust settle, and so then you take all the emotion out of it, like it's over with. You kind of come to grips with the win or the loss. So it was just, I think, tactical errors that I. And then his 3, he had been knocked out the 3 fights before. Like he fought Romero, Brunson, and maybe Rockhold. The 3 fights before mine, he was trying to box him. And I was like, hell yeah! If he tries to box with me, he's for sure out of here. But he started running around, so I think I failed to make adjustments in that fight, and just kind of let him get away with too much. like every time he kicked me, I should have dropped him or hit him or threw a punch or a strike. And there were just a lot of things that I felt that I did that I could have done better or differently in that fight. And at the time, or looking back on it now, I was like, man, you should, for where you were at, 10 fights into a pro career, fighting a guy like Machida, who's had like 30 fights, former champ, he's fought everybody. You're being a little hard on yourself, And we were fighting in Brazil. I think if we fight in America,
I think you fight in
that's
America,
me.
that's you're getting the decision.
Yeah, we fought in his hometown at that. So, and then I had surgery. Then I turned around, fought Tim Williams. Got a performance bonus, knocked him out. Then they called me for Thiago, and I was like, man, cool, but what's the money look like? 'Cause I'm not finna fight that dude on my current contract. You forget about that. So man, they gave me a new contract, new 4-fight deal. So I was like, cool, we'll make it happen. Got another performance bonus. Those are the kind of fights that I like. Even though I lost, I went out on my shield.
Oh,
the
yeah.
people were entertained. The fans were entertained. And, we went to war. It was a fun fight, regardless of the outcome for me. I'd rather lose like that than lose like I lost to Machida.
Right.
So I turn around, rebound against, or come back. They offered me the Theodoro fight. Cool, let's do it. And kind of the same thing, man. I just kind of, was chasing him around. I think the volume was the issue.
So irritating.
Yeah, well, I rewatched the fight, and they're like, he's thrown 100 more strikes than Eryk has. The commentators, I'm like, okay, well, out of those 100 more that he's thrown, how many have actually landed? Because he was just throwing a lot of shit at air, and he really wasn't like hitting me a whole lot, And what he was hitting me with, it was kind of like Machida, but worse, because like at least Machida had a little thump on his, And I'm not talking shit, man. I'm not like, downplaying Theodore or whatever. The guy who went 8-3 in the UFC, man, fought a lot of good guys or whatever. But I don't think that I lost that fight because there's a whole rubric. There's a scoring sheet on how they're supposed to score the fight. Effective striking, effective grappling, cage control, aggressiveness, and I for sure won. He won the first round. I for sure, without a doubt, won the second round. Dropped him. Had him on wobbly feet. I think I dropped him twice, if I remember correctly. And the third round, he landed only 8 more strikes than I did, but I did everything else better than he did. Like I had him up against the cage. I landed more power shots. And so for me, like, not just because it was me, but even when I was a fan watching the UFC, before I was in the UFC, I always thought that the guy who was, if it was close in like the strike differential, the guy who was landing harder shots, like, wins. I don't think anybody got a takedown in that fight. He may have took me down once in the first round, which he got anyways. But man, he only landed 8 more strikes, and I'm the one who was putting on the pressure. I'm the one who was throwing the power shots and landing the power shots. He was just kind of bink, bink, bink. And once again, we're in Canada, so
Yeah.
That's another thing. Another fight. I wasn't breathing hard after the fight, so I think if I could do that fight differently, I broke my hand in the second round before I dropped him. But I think if I go back and I fight that fight again, I empty the gas tank in the second round, because if I'm gonna lose the fight, fuck it, I want to get him out of there. If I'm gonna lose the fight in the third round anyways, then at least have it be a little bit more decisive. And I think that if I would have pressed the issue and kind of went back to how I used to fight before and early into my UFC career, like, there's no way I get a dude hurt like that and he gets out of the round. Especially, I think there was like a minute and a half left in the round. It's over with. And I think that I just tried to take a more like calculated approach to the fight, and instead of just fighting how I fight, I think that I get him out of there in the second round.
And do you think, are you kind of done fighting on other people's hometown turf? Because like there's like guys like Max Griffin. you know, he was actually he talked out about it the other day. He basically got robbed 2 straight times going to Brazil. I mean, there's always
Alves
a little
fight.
fishy scoring out there in
true.
Brazil. Thiago Alves, I mean, that was like a clear decision
I
for
thought he
Max.
for sure won.
So it's like, as a fighter, you know, when this stuff matters, like, you know, to some people it's like, oh, whatever. But like you guys, it affects your pay, right?
Sure.
It affects, you know, if you go on a 3, 4, 5 fight. I mean, it's
right.
rare that it gets to 4 or 5. Losing streak in the UFC, you know, unless they really like you and they want to keep you, you're probably gone. It affects your promotability. It affects everything. So like for you as a fighter, does that kind of, do you think about that now from when you're going to be booking fights? I mean, you're also a guy who's ready to fight. You don't care where it is or who it is.
I think I'm on a 3-fight losing streak, and I just got a new contract.
Right.
You know, so the UFC likes me. They like the way I fight. You know, I've you know, done stuff for them in the past.
How many fights is your new contract?
4.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm finna fight in June. That'll be the first fight. So, yeah, obviously, you know, my job is on the line, and I do think about it. Just because, man, I don't give a fuck. New contract or not, they can cut you whenever. So, I think it's important to get this win in this next fight. But, man, you know, I like challenges, and, you know, I'm a special kind of dumbass. So if they call me and he's like, you want to fight, you know, so-and-so in their home country, then, you know, it's hard for me to say no. You know, so I've never said no to the UFC. So, and they know that. They know who to call when somebody gets hurt, somebody who they need to be ready in that middleweight or light heavyweight division, and it's me. And, you know, I'm cool with that. I know my role, you know. So, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But if they were like, go fight, I don't know, somebody, then, you know, I'd, you know, roll those dice and say fuck it and fight anyways.
How do you, like, you know, yes, you're on a skid right now. I'd say it's a little bit, you know, controversial fights. Some should have gone your way, some didn't. How do you mentally and physically, what kind of adjustments are you making, and how does, you know, the last couple of fights kind of go about in your head when you're preparing for this fight? And do you feel, I mean, have you ever felt pressure, or do you feel more pressure now?
Man, I don't really feel pressure, and I think that the fans in the UFC appreciate the way that I fight. Like, even my last fight, you know, I got demolished, and I got dropped 4 times in one round, but guess what? I got up 4 times and kept pushing forward, kept moving forward, and kept fighting, whereas a lot of guys are like, man, fuck it, I'm done, and like will quit on the stool or something like that, you know, or will say something to the doctor to like kind of make the doctor stop the fight or whatever. But, you know, the doctor, he's like, are you good? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm straight, man. It's cool, you know. So I think that they appreciate, like, you know, my heart and my fight. And I'm not really in any boring fights outside of like Machida, who's, you know, that's his fault, man. He was the one running the whole time. Right. I came to fight. You know, Theodoro, they were running the whole time. I came to fight. Thiago, you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, you know. Yeah. But we were in the middle of that bitch throwing, you know, and the people like that. And, you know, one thing, I think they appreciate the way I lose as well. And, you know, I really don't like saying that, but, you know, it is what it is, you know. You win some, you lose some, and, you know, it's on to the next. So, you know, I enjoy a laugh. So even if the laugh is at myself, you know, the rest of the world is laughing at you anyway, so you might as well get a laugh in yourself. So it's a combination of all these things that, you know, kind of make me a fan favorite and easy to deal with for the matchmakers. And, you know, people want to see me win. People want to see me succeed. And above all that, they want to see me fight because they know it's going to be an entertaining fight, and they know, you know, if somebody's leaving out of there busted up.
Do you feel like sometimes, and we were kind of talking about it before going live, that you feel like you might be a little bit too tough for your own good? Like, you know, I was rewatching the last fight, and, you know, you're down 2 rounds. You know, I think I don't want to quote, but some of the commentators were like, maybe you should throw in the towel. I know it's like never crossed your mind, but do you feel like more fighters maybe should throw in the towel? And do you feel like sometimes in your career, you know, to save yourself, you should have done it?
Man, I think if I quit in the middle of a fight, then that's probably the end of my career. I think that, you know, it's that's not in me to quit. If I get knocked out, that's not quitting. If I get submitted, that's not quitting. But if I'm able to fight and I, because I got dropped 4 times or whatever the issue, outside of like an injury or something crazy like that, if I quit in the middle of a fight, then that lets me know that, my heart's not in it and you shouldn't be doing it anyways, because that's when you're really going to get fucked up. So, I guess that answer is different for everybody. But for me personally, if I quit in the middle of a round just because it's not going my way or I don't answer the bell for the next round, like Thiago Santos, I didn't even make it to the fucking stool, so I don't count that. So I think if I sit on the stool and I say I'm done, then that's it. I'm probably not going to fight anymore.
Do you love what you do?
Absolutely, man. I love the training. I love the traveling. I love everything about MMA. Even the weight cutting isn't too bad. It's just like the last 2 or 3 pounds that suck. But everybody goes through that when I fight at 85. So, I love the training. I love the struggle. I love the, getting up. I almost feel normal when I'm fighting because I really don't feel like I express or feel too many emotions. But, after winning, it's like I'm human. Like, it's just this rush of emotions and endorphins and stuff. And I think that fighting is the most primal thing that a human can do. I think that humans are made to fight, and should fight. And it's
weird. Do you
weird.
think they are? You think? Because, I don't know, it's also super interesting. Is like, you could go in there and you want to punch or submit somebody unconscious. But, like, here, like, you're, like, the nicest guy. Like, how... that's what a lot of people will talk about is, like... I mean, I listen to Rogan's podcast, like, daily. I don't know if you do. But it's, like... some of these MMA guys, some I think genuinely want to hurt people, but I think it's like the slim minority.
Sure.
I mean, you guys might be some of the nicest athletes there are. Why do you think that is?
I think that MMA is a very humbling experience. In football, there's, 2, 3, 4 alphas in the locker room, guys that, have never even really been tested. They're just bigger, stronger, or whatever. And so nobody wants to, like, test those waters. But in MMA, there's no hiding. There is no fake persona. There is no tough guy act. Everybody's been beat up. Everybody's been submitted. So you know that there's somebody out there that's going to fuck you up or can fuck you up and has fucked you up. So there's nowhere to hide. So everybody's like, in the back of their mind, it's like, I've been done in before. Whether it be knocked out in a fight or, submitted on a regular basis by a training partner or just pieced up in practice or whatever, everybody kind of knows that there's a bigger, badder fish. And it's funny because, there's always somebody. And that person who beat you up might get beat up by somebody you just beat up, So it's weird like that. Football and other sports, there's not a whole lot of challenging or posturing or anything like that. So, MMA is a very humbling experience.
So your next opponent, Vinicius Moreira. Without, obviously you don't want to look past it, but what do you kind of see yourself after this fight? Go get that win. What do you hope, to do in the next couple, I don't want to get too ahead, of course, but like, what do you see yourself in the next year? What are your goals? Do you have any goals?
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning of the year, I write down all my goals that I want to achieve for the year and put them on the refrigerator. Write them down on paper, put them up on the refrigerator. And, I like to fight often, about 4 times a year. And it's funny you say, like, what do I have planned? I do a lot of, like, visualization. Not necessarily, like, what's going to happen during the fight, but, like, the feelings that I want to feel and express after the fight and what I want to, not looking, like you said, it's not looking past the fight. Is once you win, what's next kind of thing. So, I just like visualize myself. I don't know who the MC is gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be Joe or I'd imagine it's gonna be Joe Martinez. I just imagine him saying my name and I think about going out there and getting this quick finish in this fight and if I could possibly turn around and fight in that San Antonio card. That's where I'm from. In a perfect world, I go out there, I get him out of there in the first round, come out unscathed, and then turn around and get another fight in San Antonio.
Have you pictured yourself as a UFC champion one day?
Absolutely. I think that, I'm on this little skid right now, and I'm bouncing back and forth between 2 weight classes, but I think I'll settle into the middleweight division and, go on a streak and see myself in title contention by the middle of next year.
And how many years do you see yourself still fighting? I mean, like you're 32, so you're still young. You're still probably around, I'd say probably close prime. But you have a lot of years of football on you as well. How does your body feel, and how many more years do you see yourself fighting?
Man, honestly, this is the best I've ever felt in my life. When I played football, I was like close to 250 pounds.
That big?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, especially after, because, I was like lifting and eating and, living the good life. And, man, it was just a lot of weight on my joints, and my knees always hurt, my back always hurt. I was stiff. I couldn't touch my toes. I've gotten into yoga and stretching and range of motion and flexibility and stuff, and that to me has made the biggest difference in the way my body feels. And also, there's cryotherapy and, all these other ways to help you recover and stuff that I'm really utilizing. So, and this is more of a natural weight for me to be walking around at. I'm not killing myself in the weight room. Staying healthy, eating right, my diet is on point. And so this is the best I've ever felt, and I think that that's really going to prolong my career. But, I tell my wife and kids I want to be done by the time I'm 35. But the older I get, the better I feel. So I don't know, especially if, like, I'm in, like, the top 5, top 10, I'm not going to retire. No way. So, man, we'll see. You see guys like Romero, that dude's 42, and he's still trucking. So, Machida, he's up there. He's still doing it. So I think once I can't compete at the top anymore, like in the UFC, then me and my wife, we have enough like residual income, and she makes good money that I could retire now and we'd still be straight, and I could just do the stay-at-home dad thing. But I think I would miss the competition. I think it's too young. It's too early for me to do that. I think about at the minimum 35.
Okay. And there's a talking about weight cuts and stuff, just for some people don't know kind of the details. Honestly, I don't even know all the details of a weight cut, and you guys both. So Yasmin, you compete in the IFBB.
IFBB,
So that's bodybuilding. They're different styles. Can you kind of explain that? Because I'm not even familiar with it.
For my type of competition, I have to cut weight too, but it's a different type. He cuts weight, and he has to focus more on performance. So he has to cut weight, eat well, but it doesn't matter how he's gonna look. He can look like, he doesn't need to look good. He just needs to be well fed and perform well. And for me, it's different. It doesn't matter, what I eat. It matters how I'm going to look. If my skin is looking tight, if my muscles are looking full. So that's the difference. But the last week, I still have to dehydrate a little bit. So he does a little more intense, and I still do it. But one of the reasons that I started competing was seeing him cutting weight and going on a diet with him and everything. I'm like, and he would be super moody and doing this all the time. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a try. Because then I'm gonna be on his shoes, and I know I can judge him. I can't judge him if I don't know what he's going through that. So I started doing it, and I started seeing like, it's bad, but I think you can do better. And then Eryk actually started improving and doing it better, and now he's a pro cutting weight. He can do it, and it goes just perfectly and smooth.
Will you guys each kind of detail how different your weight cuts are, or what kind of things do you do that might be similar or different to what Eryk does?
Eryk eats way more because he's a bigger guy, and he eats more times a day, and his meals are distributed depending on the training he's doing. For example, if he's doing more mornings, more intense workout, he eats a little bit more of carbs, and I always try to balance out his macros depending on what he's doing. And for me, it's much more like the same type of meals that I have. As closer as I get to the competition, I cut all the carbs because my performance is not going to be so... it doesn't matter so much because the last weeks I actually just cut way down, so I don't need to perform too well at the gym.
So you said seeing him kind of had you done any bodybuilding before meeting him, or
No,
was
I work out. It's been 16 years that I like to lift weights and do cardio and everything, but I have never done it for, for something specific like that. But my coach has always told me, like, you should compete, you should compete. I think you have the mindset, you have the discipline. I was like, nah, maybe it's not for me. But then I started seeing that this is a good hobby because that's what I really like to do, and why not? If I'm just, always lifting weights, always training, always doing everything else, so why not competing?
so at what point were you like, I'm gonna make this? Would you say it's your main job?
No. Now I have a school, a second language school, and competing is just a hobby. So it's, I would say, what keeps me healthy and challenging me all the time, humbling me all the time too. So
Do you have your students that ask you questions about
competing, yes, all the time. The girls, especially the women, are like, can you help me with my dad? I'm like, I'm not a trainer. My coach can help you. So yeah.
Do you ever, do you have to watch your diet on a daily basis? Can you ever really go off?
Yeah, we always have vacations, so we always give us like a week off here and there. I always have my cheat meals, and the more I do it, I think it's my body adapts better to the diet, and I can be a little more flexible with it. But yes, we do a lot of vacation and free time eating whatever we want.
What's the biggest misconception about bodybuilding?
And that's a good question. The biggest misconception, I don't know. I think a lot of times people think that the athletes look exactly what they do on a daily basis, like all the time, and it's not really that. That is how you look specifically for the show, and that's not how you're gonna look the rest of the year. It's the biggest misconception. We were today at the Fit Expo, and people think the athletes are gonna look perfect with a six-pack and buff and ripped all the time, and it's really not even healthy to be like that all the time.
Well, what about that? I mean, like, there's a lot of talk in the in the fighting world about getting rid of weight cutting, and I'm sure with you as well. Like, what do you feel like it could be better to change the weight cutting process or regulate it?
I don't know. For MMA, I think it would be a little mess to do it.
I think the difference is she's not getting socked in the face.
Yeah.
So, like, when you dehydrate, like, your brain is dehydrated, and that's how you see some guys, like, one fight, they'll take a beating or go through a war, and then, like, the next fight, the stiff breeze knocks them out. And it's because they dehydrate, and maybe dehydrated too much, cut too much water, and didn't rehydrate as much. So, she can be dehydrated and still go out there, flex and pose and stuff with no repercussions. If I cut a bunch of water and I don't rehydrate properly, but it starts like weeks before. Like, if I fuck off like the first 4 weeks of an 8-week
What's the schedule like?
For me,
say for when you go down to, because right now you're at 205. When you go down to 185, what does a weight cutting process look like for you?
I need at least 6 weeks to make 185 the way I want to make 185. The easiest way possible, where I cut the least amount of water possible, is about a good 6 weeks. I can do it in less, but I'm not as, I cut from like 230 to 185 when I fought Natal, and it sucked. In like 10 days I did that, and it's not fun. And
cut 45 pounds in 10 days?
I cut, yeah. Wow. And but I couldn't say no, man. It's UFC, and so I was like, hell yeah.
And what did you walk in that night as?
I don't remember.
You were not too heavy.
Yeah, I wasn't super heavy. They now they weigh you in when you get to the arena, but I don't think they were doing that then.
Is there now a limit on what you can weigh on the fight night?
No, but in like California, they only want you to cut X amount of your body weight, and you can only put X amount on. So, long story short, I fought in California when I fought Marcus Perez. They make you do like a FaceTime phone call and make you get on a scale, and like a few weeks before the fight. And I didn't want to do that because I already know I'm like heavy, And so I didn't want them talking shit. So I put them off. And they were leaving messages on my phone telling me they could suspend me. Then I'd be in breach of my UFC contract. So I finally call them back on a Sunday where I don't train. And it's like the Sunday before the fight. And I've been, drank 2 gallons of water. So I'm like super saturated. And I get on the scale and I'm like 225. And then fast forward to Tuesday, I get off the plane in Fresno, and my manager, Jason House, calls me and says, hey, they're trying to make you fight this other guy who's a bigger middleweight, and then your opponent's going to fight that guy's opponent, and then you are going to have a catch weight at 195. And I was like, hell no. I trained to fight this guy. I'm going to fight this guy at the weight that I signed to fight, and that's going to be that. And I made weight without issue, probably the easiest weight cut I've had at that. So California, I don't think they're gonna let me fight at 185 anymore.
What's your worst weight cutting story?
Oh my God! When I fought Machida, I don't know why they did this, but
it was at 185, yeah.
Yeah, it was middleweight. Yeah, we fought, and they put us in a hotel with no bathtub, and that's how I cut the weight. Is I just sit in a hot tub in a bathtub of hot water with Epsom salt and green alcohol, and it just sucks the water right down. It depends. I do like 20 minutes in, and I'll get out for like 10, 15 minutes, wrap up in a blanket or a sleeping bag or something to keep the sweat going, and I'll just keep doing rounds until I make weight. So, but they didn't have a bathtub in the hotel, so on the day that everybody cuts weight, Thursday night, Friday morning, they were like, when do you want to go to the hotel? And I was like, man, I'll go at like 2 in the morning. So we get to the hotel at like 2 or 3 in the morning, turn on the hot water. Water's piping hot, nice, perfect. It's cool. So I turn off the water, take a nap, get up at like 4, get on the treadmill to get sweat going because it makes it go a little bit faster.
This is on the Friday of weigh-ins?
Yeah. This is like 4. We got weigh-in.
Thursday night, Friday.
So what are you weighing at 4 a.m. on the Friday
I
weigh-ins?
think I had like 10, 12 pounds to go.
That's still to real human beings, like that's still, especially you're like a high level athlete. Yeah. That sounds crazy. Like you don't have a lot to lose, I mean, maybe
I find a way to get it off.
I mean, it's so unhealthy, don't you think? Do you feel it?
Man, I can do it, and so like I don't know. I have like a lot of muscle, and I sweat crazy. Like I wake up, after sleeping at night, and there just be a puddle of water in the bed for me sweating. So I think for some people, like have a hard time to start sweating or don't hold as much water. But I think I hold a lot of water and I sweat really easy. So 10, 12 pounds. Like I'll lose that in a workout when I'm fully hydrated.
Wow.
It's not uncommon for me to train for an hour and a half and sweat out. And that's like essentially like a gallon and a half. It's not uncommon for me to do that.
So at 4 a.m., what time do you have to weigh in on a Friday?
9.
So from 4 to 9 a.m., you lose like 10 to 12 pounds.
Well, no.
Usually
we're gonna get into
All right,
this.
get into it.
So I get up before I get on the treadmill, get a sweat going. My teammate calls me and said, man, there's no hot water. And I'm just like, man, how stupid can you be to not know how to turn on hot water? Because I'm also cutting weight, so I'm not putting this together yet. So I go down there, I try to turn on the hot water, and nothing but air comes out. So you get on the phone and say, hey, there's no hot water. Oh, our hot water heater blew up. Excuse me. And this is a nice hotel, man. Like you go in, there's a big foyer.
Do you think they were fucking with you because they know you're fighting Machida?
I don't know.
I think they were.
I don't know. But they moved us to another room, and the same thing, no hot water. And I think Pedro Munoz and like two Brazilians missed weight.
It was for everybody, not only for
Pedro Munoz and Michael Polaris.
So what'd you do? So what happened after that?
So they moved me to another room, and I'm just watching the time tick away. So I try to sit in the sauna, and that's just, the sauna's not for me. And so it's just way easier. 'Cause when you sit in the tub, it like sucks out all the subcutaneous water, like the muscle between your skin and your muscles. So it's not like affecting performance. Like if you sit in the sauna or the wet sauna or the dry sauna, like your brain dehydrates and you get delirious in there. And that's why guys pass out when they cut weight in the sauna. They're trying to cut too much and it's hot in there. obviously. And then so it's probably like 7 o'clock now. Still no hot water.
And you still have 10 to 12 pounds to cut at that
I
point.
think I
At this point,
probably
you were
have
around
like
7.
5
Okay.
or so. So I'm able to, like, I'm sitting in the sauna and
Okay.
you know, I'm on the treadmill and stuff. And
What's going through your, like, for people that have never cut weight like that, you know, like, I imagine you haven't eaten a lot in a while.
So I fast for 24 hours before I get on the scale.
And
So
then,
I
like,
haven't eaten from 9 o'clock the morning before. And, man, I'm really, really getting pissed off because, man, I could be done with this shit by now. I could have been just sat in the tub and just go back and forth and be straight. And so they bring up these cauldrons of boiling water. This water, you could, like, man, I just felt like, you know, the Bugs Bunny cartoons where he's sitting there, he's chopping up carrots and he's just singing a song, taking a bath. They brought, like, cauldrons like that of boiling water, put it in the tub. So now the tub is full of this hot ass water. And I stick my toe in there, and I swear the meat of my toe almost boiled off my foot. And I was like, man, I'm not doing that. I'm not sitting there. Hell no. I'm going to die. And so now I have to, like, drain the water, put cold water in there. And now it's like, it's 9 o'clock. And now, so now the weigh-ins have started. I have until 11. And so, you know, I'm back and forth. And, you know, when you get stressed and pissed off, like, your body just, and you're already, like, your body's already stressing because it's not.
Do you feel nauseous as well?
Nah, not too much. And man, so I'm just mad. So now your body's like stressing out. You're releasing the hormones that hold on to water, so it's not coming off as easy. So they make you go check your weight at 10 o'clock. So I go down there. I got like 4 pounds left. I go back up. 11 o'clock hits. It's like, bro, you got to weigh in. And, you know, 2 other guys called it quits an hour ago. They said, fuck it, because of the hot water issue. But I was like, man, I'm at least try to make weight. So I go down there. I'm like 2 pounds, or I think it was only like 2 pounds over, which is miraculous.
Wow.
You know, fucking. Oh, I was like, man, I got a lot closer than I thought I was.
They don't even get to, like, cut you some slack for.
Well, so, man, I sit down, I missed weight, and I'm already pissed. But I've already come to grips. I was like, okay, I just lost 20% of my money. This is bullshit. It's not even my fault. So, man, I'm telling you, I get the water right there. And they're like, whoa, stop. We're going to go ask the commission and Machida if it's cool if we give you an extra hour because it's not your fault. And so now it's just like a nuclear bomb went off in my head. I've come to grips. I've lost my money. Fuck it. At least I get to, like, rehydrate now. And so they have like a 30-minute conversation, and I'm still sitting here like
miserable.
And they're like, okay, we're gonna give you another hour. So I'm not doing the tub, and you know it's like 11:30 in Belen, which is like right below the equator. And so I put on a sauna suit, put on my sweats, and I go outside, and it is fucking hot as shit. It's got to be like 100 degrees. And 100% humidity. And Belen is like at the top of the Amazon. So I'm walking through the fucking rainforest, or a city in the middle of a rainforest. And you know, I'm just like pacing back and forth in front of the hotel. And they gave me an hour, but like at 45 minutes, I was like, man, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done with this shit. If I don't make weight, I don't make weight. And it's going to be what it is. And I get on the scale, and I weighed 186 on the dot.
Wow.
And they give you that pound. So I was like, oh, I get to keep all my money. Fuck yeah. But now it's like, you know, it's 12, and I'm just like, man, I need a nap. I need drinks. And I just, you know. And then we turned around. I don't think it affected my performance too much. You know, we fought 5 rounds, and, you know, I wasn't breathing hard at all. But, you know, it's not a fun experience for shit like that to happen.
Yeah. There's one other thing on that we kind of talked about pre-podcast was hypnotism. Kind of talk to me about that and what role that's played in your life as a fighter. It's mostly for fighting.
Sure. Yeah, so, man, my last fight was against Khalil Roundtree. And if you watch his other fights, you know, he just came out like a totally different person. And I think, you know, that night I was, you know, I didn't feel like fighting. And that's like the simplest way that I can explain it. You know, I found myself like grouchy all day, and, You know, I was just like, man, I don't even want to do this shit right now. And I think it showed. I think the combination of his best performance along with my worst performance made that fight turn out how it did. And, man, I just kept hearing him talk about hypnotism. You know, a week or two after the fight, and I watched his podcast with Joe Rogan, and I was like, man, you know what? I need to try to see what this is about. Because when I think of hypnotism, I think of some dude waving a fucking watch in front of your face, or, you know, making you fall asleep or bark like a dog and shit. And I was like, man, you know, I just thought it was bullshit. But I was like, man, I got to see. So I got to see it for myself. So I went to Vegas and saw the same dude that he saw. And, you know, before the Machida fight, man, I would visualize fights and what happens after a fight. It would be so vivid. Like, I would get goosebumps. I would get an adrenaline rush just sitting at the table eating dinner. You know, I would just kind of zone out in my own world, and, you know, I would just, you know, have physical reactions to things that I was seeing in my own head. So I knew it was real, and then it would, like, manifest in the fight, like some of the combinations and scenarios and situations. And, you know, I was 10-0. I was knocking guys out or beating them up really bad. And then for whatever reason, I had gotten away from it and haven't been able to visualize and get to that level since then. And I had no idea why. I hear Khalil talk about the visualization shit, and I was like, man, I used to do that too. And went back there, and it's not like he doesn't wave a watch, you know.
What's it like?
Man, he just puts you in like a state of relaxation, to the point where, like, your mind is firing on all cylinders. You're just super relaxed. Your eyes are closed, almost to the point where you're asleep, but you still have cognitive thought. And man, you just like pick a subject for each session, like a time that, like, the first time that you were ever scared, or the first time that you were ever angry, and then you just kind of like erase all that stuff out of your mind. Not like the situation, but like the emotion. And then we really worked on like the visualization part, and, you know, I'm back to that point where, you know, just kind of randomly I'll just like zone out and you know, start thinking about, you know, my next fight, you know, to the point where, like, you know, I can see his haircut, I can smell his breath, you know, I can, you know, feel the sweat, feel the punches, and, you know, it's I think that's when I fight my best, when I fought the fight 100 times before I actually go in there and fight. Then when you go in there and fight, man, there's like, you can turn your mind off because it's already pre-programmed. You've already seen it, you've already felt it, you've already experienced all the emotions, and it's man, it's just a crazy thing for that to happen, and the things that you actually see happening in your head happen in real life in the fight. And, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if science is the word for it, or how it manifests, but you know, it's real, and it's happened before, and it's something that, you know, I had to get back to. 'Cause, like I said, it's when I fight my best. You know, I've gotten the reps. It's just like practicing something, and it's second nature. It just happens. It's instinct. It's reaction. It's not like a thought. And you know, like I said, that's when I fight my best. And when I get to that point, especially on fight day, like, I'll fight the fight 10, 15 times in the day between the time I get up. I do like calisthenics. I go do sprints. I stretch. I do all these things and play the fight in my head, and it's just something that I've gotten away from, and you know, I'm back to it now. So, you know, I'm looking to cash in on another bonus, get another win, and get back in that win column, and then go back to 85 and make a run at the division.
How do you see this fight playing out?
I think I'm gonna knock him out, man.
Any round?
I'm gonna go out there and, you know, I'm gonna be me. You know, fight like I had fought Natal, fought like I fought Marcus Perez, fought like I fought Brendan Allen, and just get in there, gritty, make it ugly, and, you know, fight the way that, you know, I fight and the way that I like to fight, and make it a war, stuff his takedowns, and go out there and get a first round knockout.
So kind of just to wrap it up, how has being a father and a husband kind of influenced you as a person, as a man, as a fighter?
Man, it's awesome. You know, I was a father before I started fighting, but, you know, you're kind of selfish when it's just you, when you don't have anybody dependent on you, when you don't have to, you know, feed or clothe or provide for anybody. You know, it's just you. You can be selfish, you know. So, you know, when I had my son, it's like, all right, it's not just me. You know, I got to think about this. So I can't be as impulsive, which is, you know, being impulsive is, you know, part of my natural behavior, you know. So you can't be that way anymore, you know, because you're going to get in trouble. You're going to do something you're not supposed to do. You know, you have a son to provide for. And then, you know, I kind of feel like I assembled the Avengers, you know. Like, I got my kids, they're badass. They watch film. They tell me how to game plan for my opponents. You know, I got my wife, you know, and she's really the reason I'm able to do this because, you know, I was working a job and training and fighting, and I would come home and just be exhausted. And, you know, and she's like, why are you doing this? Why don't you quit your job and, you know, give yourself 2 years? And I was going to school to be get my paramedic license so I could be a firefighter. And she's like, why are you doing that? Just quit your job. You can work at the gym, teach classes, teach private lessons, sign members up, and just do that. You know, you have the rest of your life to work. Give it 2 years, and man, if the shit don't work out, then you go, you know, fucking take calls on the phone and shit. And you know, she had taught me into doing it. I know it sounds weird, but I was like, man, I got a kid, I got a car payment, I got this, that, and the third. So she was like, all right, how much is it gonna cost for you to quit your job? And I was like, man, you know, I'm not gonna tell you about all these bills, but I gotta have my car. So I gotta pay off my car.
What are you riding?
I was in a Honda and a Accord. So man, the next day or that night, you know, she wrote a check to pay off my car. We're not even married yet, you know. So she made an investment in me, and it was like, you know, pay off your car. The next day, I went and put in my 2 weeks notice, quit my job, started working at the gym. 2 years later, you know, I'm 8 fights. This will be my 8th fight in the UFC. So, you know, I guess 3 years later because we weren't even married yet. But, man, it's just crazy how fast things have materialized. And, you know, when you put the right people in the right place in your life, like I said, she made an investment in me, and I'll forever be grateful. And, you know, I don't feel like I owe her anything because we're doing this together. But at the same time, it's like, you know, these people are out here making sacrifices for you and doing this. So, you know, you owe it to them to train to the best of your ability and do what you need to do and got to do to win fights. And, you know, I see a lot of these dudes with their wives and they bitch at them for spending too much time in the gym or traveling to go train, or they're just always up their ass or pick fights with them like the day before the fight. And she doesn't do any of that stuff, man. She knows her role. She knows her position. And, you know, the closer to fight time, you know, she does everything, man. I literally train and come home and, you know, put the kids in bed. She works at night. She cooks. She cleans. She does everything. She's the CFO, CEO, dietitian, nutritionist, wife, mother. You know, she wears all the hats. I just train and fight and, you know, play with the kids, you know. So she's like on the chessboard. She is the queen, the most powerful piece on the board. And you know, I got my coach, my training partners. Those are the knights and the rooks and stuff like that. And man, you know, I just have an awesome team, and, you know, kind of excluded all the people that are negative or, you know, bitch or complain or aren't doing anything with their lives out of my life. And as a result, my life has done nothing but that. And outside of the 3 losses, man, you know, that's just sports. And, you know, people go on runs like that. Outside of Khabib and John Jones, you know, everybody has a loss or has a few losses. You know, there are guys, you know, Dustin Poirier, I don't know what his record is, but he's lost a few times, and now he's got the belt. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's just part of the nature of the sport, and I think it reveals your true character. You know, you know, Ronda Rousey lost, and she quit the game entirely, you know. So, You know, I think it is, you know, how do you handle success and handle life? And I think that outside of me, the people that you surround yourself also affect that. And that's just kind of how the team that is around me right now.
It's a beautiful story. You can find Eryk fighting on UFC on ESPN June 29th. That's the Ngannou Santos card. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram, Eryk Anders, at Eryk Anders.
Yes, sir.
You can find Yasmin at yasmin.anders on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You guys, it really means the world that you took the time. I remember, you know, when I first started the podcast, I sent you an email, and I think you responded like 4 or 5 hours later. You said, let's do it. And then, you know, we had to figure out when we're going to be like kind of in the same area. You know, I made the trip down. You're in Anaheim. I wanted to make sure that we made it happen. But truly, you guys are class acts, and it means the world that you took the time to do this today.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
bro, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you.
Beautiful.